The moment this story hit social media, everything shifted. 1 second, the timeline was quiet. And the next, it felt like someone yanked the fire alarm in the middle of the love and hip-hop universe. Posts were flying everywhere. Fan pages were spinning up theories before anyone even understood what was happening. And people who had been offline for hours came back to their phones buzzing like alarms because something massive had just cracked open. At the center of it all was a short, unexpected clip. A clip that didn't yell. A clip that didn't accuse. But somehow the way it landed sent shockwaves across every corner of the internet. Creators paused their usual content. Gossip blogs switched into emergency mode. And fans, especially the ones who know every detail of this cast's history, instantly recognized the tension hiding underneath the words. Because this wasn't just another messy moment. It wasn't a recycled storyline or a casual disagreement. It felt heavier. Like something was being exposed piece by piece, and people realized they were watching the beginning of a bigger unraveling. Every second, more clips surfaced, reactions, stitches, slowed-down versions, body language breakdowns, and reposts from accounts that normally never touch love and hip-hop drama. That's how you knew the situation wasn't normal. It had crossed into the larger internet, dragging in voices that don't usually sit at this table. Fans kept replaying the same seconds, searching for meaning in tiny gestures. A look, a pause, a breath, and the more they analyzed it, the more questions appeared. Questions that didn't have answers. Questions that made people nervous. But the biggest shock wasn't just the content of the clip. It was how it was delivered. The tone, the pacing, the careful wording that felt like someone trying to protect the truth while still revealing just enough to start a wildfire. Now the entire conversation, every comment, every repost, every theory was pointing to one thing. Something deeper was happening behind the scenes, something the public wasn't supposed to catch. Which leads us straight into the person at the center of this spark. Funky Dineva. From the moment Funky Dineva opened his mouth in that clip, everything shifted. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. His whole delivery carried a weight that made people lean in, rewind, and analyze every breath between his sentences. He didn't come in loud or dramatic. He didn't point fingers or spill names. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He let the silence do half the talking. The pauses. The controlled breathing. The slight hesitation before certain phrases. All of it felt intentional, like he was navigating a minefield while still trying to send a very clear message. And then came the line that detonated the internet. He said he was protecting something romantic, not protecting a friend, not protecting someone's feelings. He specifically used the word romantic, a word that carries a very different weight when spoken slowly, with certainty, and under the kind of tension that was in his voice. The way he let that word sit in the air was what grabbed people. He didn't rush past it. He didn't soften it. He didn't correct himself. He wanted that word to land. And it did, like a spark in a room full of gasoline. Then came the micro-expressions, the tiny reactions that fans on TikTok slowed down frame by frame. The little smirk he tried to hide, the raised eyebrow, the quick inhale right before he clarified that he wasn't trying to start anything. But the thing is, when you say you're not trying to start something, it's usually because you already know you just did. And Funky knew. He felt the weight of it in real time. You could see it in the way he leaned back, almost like he was bracing for impact. Even the tone of his voice added more fuel to the fire. It wasn't defensive, wasn't irritated. It was almost cautious, like he was trying to walk the line between honesty and damage control. And fans picked up on another detail. Whenever someone is telling a story and keeps circling back to the same phrase, they're not just explaining, they're revealing something they're struggling to say directly. Funky circled back to that word romantic more than once. Never aggressively, never impulsively. Just enough to make sure the audience caught it. That repetition was intentional. It made viewers question everything. Who was he protecting? Why? Did it sound like he was hiding someone's secret? And why did it feel like his delivery was holding back a truth he didn't want to be responsible for exposing? His breathing pattern even changed each time he got close to mentioning certain details, a deeper inhale, a longer pause, then a quick shift to a different part of the story. People noticed. People studied it. People connected dots they weren't supposed to connect. That's how this turned from a simple commentary into a full-blown mystery. Not because he confirmed anything, but because he didn't. And sometimes, the things left unsaid are louder than the things spoken clearly. Funky Dineva didn't drop a name. He didn't point a finger. He didn't accuse anyone directly, but his delivery, his tone, his pauses, his tension told the audience that he was protecting something fragile, something intimate, something that was never meant to escape the shadows. And that is exactly why the internet exploded. 'Cause if the delivery was this careful, this loaded, and this emotional, then whatever he was avoiding saying must be bigger than anyone realized. And now fans wanted answers, which pushed the drama straight into the next phase. The reaction from the internet itself. The moment Funky Dineva's clip hit the internet, the fan reaction didn't just start. It detonated like a digital avalanche, sweeping across every corner of the love and hip-hop community with the kind of force that only true social media chaos can produce. Within minutes, fan pages were reposting the clip with flashing captions, zoomed-in screenshots, and theories layered over theories. Reaction channels on YouTube fired up instant uploads, pausing every 2 seconds to analyze Funky's tone, his eye movements, the micro-expressions he didn't even know he made. TikTok detectives stitched the clip, breaking it down frame by frame, insisting they spotted hidden meanings in his pauses, coded messages in his breaths, and intentional wording in the way he said, protecting something romantic. Twitter. X threads exploded with hundreds of replies, each person adding their own speculation, like a domino effect. Some claiming Tamar was hiding a bigger truth, others insisting Funky knew far more than he admitted on camera. Instagram gossip blogs took the clip and ran it through their own machines, slow-motion reels, red circle callouts, and comparison edits showing Funky's previous statements versus his current one. Comments turned into mini investigations as followers started matching dates, digging up old screenshots, comparing outfits, questioning who was traveling where and with whom on the night Tamar claimed everything went left. Subreddits became digital crime labs, with users building entire timelines based only on interviews, Instagram lives, deleted stories, and rumored sightings, drawing arrows, posting side-by-side receipts, and asking whether Funky's words accidentally slipped a truth that had been buried behind public statements. Even the casual viewers who normally just scroll past gossip suddenly became invested, pulled into the momentum like a current too strong to escape. Because the story had all the perfect ingredients: romantic speculation, celebrity contradiction, and the sense that someone wasn't telling the full truth. The viral spread wasn't just fast, it was self-sustaining, feeding off engagement, outrage, curiosity, and the adrenaline rush of trying to solve a mystery in real time. Every repost created new interpretations, every interpretation sparked new debates, and every debate escalated the story into something bigger than the original clip itself. By the time the first hour passed, the narrative was no longer in Funky's control or Tamar's, because the internet had taken ownership, rewriting the storyline with collective suspicion, shared intuition, and a relentless determination to piece together what really happened behind the scenes. Tamar's timeline, already messy and emotionally heavy, became even more tangled once Funky Dineva's claims surfaced. Because the two narratives didn't just fail to align, they clashed like two stories happening in alternate universes. Publicly, Tamar painted a picture of a chaotic night filled with confusion, pain, and physical injury. A night where she said she was assaulted, shaken, unable to process anything clearly, and desperate to make sense of what had happened in real time. She talked about being overwhelmed, not knowing who to call, trying to gather herself between fear and shock, and dealing with a situation that spiraled faster than she could react to it. Her posts described frantic moments, medical concerns, and emotional chaos layered with uncertainty about who was truly in her corner while everything was unfolding. But Funky's narrative introduced an entirely different angle. One that suggested he and Tamar were texting back and forth throughout the night, staying in constant communication, and sharing enough exchange that he felt confident speaking on details the public never heard. This created a glaring contradiction. How could Tamar describe the night as scattered, blurry, and unstable, while Funky implied she was lucid enough to talk, explain, and keep him updated in real time. Fans immediately caught the inconsistency and began dissecting the timeline, like investigators, tearing apart witness statements that didn't add up. Tamar's version leaned heavily into shock, injury, and emotional breakdown, suggesting someone dealing with trauma who couldn't possibly juggle coherent conversations, while Funky's version hinted that she might have been more composed, more aware, and more connected to what was happening than she publicly presented. This clash didn't just raise questions, it ignited debates across social media about who was telling the truth, who was withholding something, and whether both narratives were missing pieces that only insiders could see. Supporters of Tamar argued that trauma can distort memory and that she might have texted without fully processing the night, that panic can coexist with communication. Meanwhile, others insisted that Funkies.com retelling, with his emphasis on detailed exchanges, suggested Tamar wasn't being fully transparent about how the night unfolded. The conflicting narratives also fueled deeper speculation about motives. Was Tamar trying to protect someone? Was Funky revealing more than she expected? Were parts of the story intentionally softened or sharpened for public perception? The more fans compared timestamps, posts, lives, and statements, the clearer it became that the timeline was fractured, like two halves of a puzzle that didn't lock together. And the bigger issue wasn't just the contradiction itself, but the way it opened the door to endless interpretations, each one more emotionally charged than the last. Tamar's injuries and her account demanded sympathy and concern, while Funky's calm, matter-of-fact delivery suggested he was confident in his version of events, leaving the audience torn between compassion, suspicion, and the uncomfortable realization that someone's story wasn't lining up with the truth. Mendeecees' role in this unfolding drama is one of those quiet, lingering presences that refuses to fade, even when he never says a single word, and that silence has become louder than anything he could have posted. Fans keep pulling him into the narrative, not because he's actively inserting himself, but because his fingerprints seem to appear everywhere in the background. Old clips resurfacing of his playful banter with Tamar, lighthearted interactions during behind-the-scenes moments, candid throwback videos where their chemistry was subtle but undeniable, and tiny gestures that viewers now revisit with a suspicious eye, searching for signs they missed the first time. TikTok editors dig up moments where Mendeecees laughed a little too hard, stood a little too close, or exchanged looks that now feel loaded with new meaning. Instagram fan pages post side-by-side comparisons of past interactions, emphasizing how calm, how familiar, how comfortable Tamar seemed around him long before this storyline erupted. And now, with Funky hinting at something romantic being protected, people can't help but pull Mendeecees deeper into the frame, even though he hasn't uttered a word. His silence has become its own narrative device, the kind the internet loves to weaponize. Every day he stays quiet, the mystery grows thicker, and the speculation becomes more dramatic. Fans argue that his silence might mean guilt, or that he's protecting someone, or that he's choosing not to speak because the truth is bigger than the public can handle. Others see his silence as strategic, a way to avoid inserting himself into a firestorm that could damage relationships, reputations, or entire storylines. Meanwhile, older scenes from Love and Hip Hop are being clipped and slowed down, as fans analyze micro-expressions, posture shifts, and passing jokes, convinced that reality TV was hiding something in plain sight. Even his recent posts, unrelated to the drama gym videos, motivational captions, or business promotions, become dissected for hidden messages, with commenters asking whether he's avoiding the topic, waiting for the right moment, or simply refusing to feed the chaos. The irony is that Mendeecees hasn't contributed a single sentence to the current conversation. Yet he remains central to it because the internet thrives on the unspoken, the unseen, and the unresolved. Silence becomes a blank canvas where fans project their own theories, frustrations, and fantasies. And every hour that he stays quiet only amplifies the idea that there's more beneath the surface. In a world where everyone else is talking, posting, reacting, and defending, Mendeecees' silence feels intentional, whether it actually is or not. And that vacuum of explanation is powerful enough to keep him at the center of the storm without him ever needing to lift a finger. Yandy's position in this entire situation is explosive, not just because her name is being dragged into theories she didn't ask for, But because she has one of the most loyal, protective, and emotionally charged fan bases in the love and hip-hop universe, a fan base that does not play when it comes to anything involving her dignity, her marriage, or her integrity. The moment Funky Dineva's comments hinted at something romantic being protected, her supporters erupted across social media, flooding comment sections with defense posts, counter-narratives, and reminders of Yandy's long-standing loyalty to both Mendeecees and her friends. Her fans argue that she has always carried herself with grace, discipline, and leadership, and they refuse to let anyone drag her into mess without proof. But the emotional stakes for Yandy go deeper than public image. She has built her brand around womanhood, resilience, family unity, and moral grounding pillars that make the current speculation emotionally heavier than typical reality TV drama. To her fans, any suggestion of betrayal or secrecy feels like a personal attack on everything she has represented for years. This is why loyalty narratives have intensified the fallout. People aren't just discussing a rumor. They're debating who has really stood beside whom, who crossed invisible lines, and who broke the unspoken rules of friendship and marriage. Every time Tamar posts something vague or funky, drops a new implication. Yandy's fan base rallies like a digital army, calling out contradictions, demanding receipts, and shutting down anyone who tries to force her into the narrative. At the same time, some viewers argue that even silence from Yandy feels like a statement, interpreting her restraint as dignity, power, or quiet frustration depending on which side of the debate they fall on. Her critics use that same silence to question why she hasn't shut the rumors down, while supporters insist she owes no explanations for something she had nothing to do with. The emotional weight lands on Yandy whether she addresses it or not, because the internet has already woven her into the storyline, framing her as either the unfairly accused or the quietly wounded party. And as loyalty becomes the currency driving this drama, loyalty to marriages, loyalty to friendships, loyalty to truth, her fan base continues to push back with fervor, reminding everyone that Yandy has faced bigger storms and kept her crown steady. Whether she speaks or stays silent, her presence looms large, shaping the tone, intensity, and emotional temperature of the entire situation. What happened next was the kind of cultural spectacle only modern social media can create, where a single comment from Funky Dineva spiraled into a universe of theories, counter-theories, fan-made evidence boards, and media coverage that fed on the tension like fuel feeding a wildfire. Theories began forming within minutes, each one gathering its own community of believers who defended it with religious level dedication. The first theory, the harmless misunderstanding angle, suggested that everything was blown out of proportion, that Tamar and Funky simply interpreted the same moment differently, and that the so-called romantic undertone everyone keeps hinting at was nothing more than misread body language or misinterpreted intent. But that theory barely survived the first hour, because creators quickly began posting split-screen edits, comparing old clips of Tamar and Mendeecees joking around with more recent footage, insisting these interactions didn't look like innocent friendship at all. This gave rise to the second theory, the affair or emotional entanglement narrative, which exploded across TikTok, drawing millions of views as commentators claimed they saw chemistry, tension, or romantic familiarity in past scenes that suddenly seemed suspicious. Reaction channels didn't hold back either. They dissected Funky's tone, the weight of his pauses, and the way he said protecting something romantic, spinning it into a narrative where Tamar was hiding a deeper truth and Mendeecees was avoiding the spotlight because he had something to lose. Then came the third theory, the misread vibes hypothesis, pushed by creators who focused heavily on Tamar's emotional state during that chaotic timeline, arguing she might have been vulnerable, shaken, or misinterpreting comfort as connection, or vice versa, and that Funky could have misunderstood the context entirely. These creators broke down micro moments from interviews, comparing breathing patterns, posture shifts, and the subtle changes in Tamar's voice, claiming it all reflected the complicated, blurry emotions of a night that spiraled beyond her control. But the most explosive theory, and the one that gained traction among drama-focused blogs, was the agenda-driven media manipulation narrative, where people argued someone behind the scenes, whether intentionally or out of hurt feelings, was stirring the pot, leaking selective details, or pushing a storyline to incite chaos. expose hidden tensions, or redirect attention from something bigger happening privately. Podcasts quickly seized on this angle, delivering hour-long deep dives where hosts debated whether Funky knew something he wasn't allowed to say, whether Tamar was protecting someone close to her, whether producers were subtly shaping the narrative, and whether old alliances in the love and hip-hop circle were finally cracking under pressure. And as each theory gained its own momentum, the lines between speculation, entertainment, and reality became hopelessly blurred. Meme pages turned the drama into punchlines. Gossip outlets turned speculation into headlines. And YouTube creators turned every new post, every vague caption, every unbothered selfie into fresh evidence that fueled their next viral upload. What started as a clip became a frenzy. What started as a question became a spectacle. By the time traditional media outlets picked up the story, analyzing the social media reaction, quoting fan tweets, and interviewing commentators for expert insight, the situation had already turned into a cultural moment bigger than the drama itself. Speculation wasn't just speculation anymore. It was entertainment, discourse, content, and community, all mixed together into a chaotic storm that refused to settle because every new theory inspired another. And every unanswered question became the seed of another storyline no one could resist chasing. And now, here we are standing in the middle of a storm with more questions than answers, more theories than truths, and more emotional weight than anyone in this circle can comfortably carry. Because even after all the clips, all the reactions, all the timelines, and all the frantic decoding from fans who feel like detectives on a mission, the core mysteries remain untouched. What exactly did Funky mean by protecting something romantic? Why does Tamar's story conflict with the version he claims to have witnessed through their text exchanges? Why is Mendeecees so silent while his name is being pulled deeper into the narrative every single day? And how does Yandy really feel watching this chaos unfold around her marriage, her identity, and her reputation, all without her saying a single word in her own defense? These loose ends aren't just details. They're emotional landmines waiting to explode. Each one capable of reshaping relationships, shifting alliances, dousing the truth into the light, whether the people involved are ready or not. And that's exactly where the suspense sharpens, in the space between what was said and what was left unsaid. Between what fans think they know and what the insiders refuse to confirm, the tension isn't dying down. It's intensifying, building pressure with every new post, every new silence, every new moment that passes without clarity. So before we dive into the next chapter, before we break down the leaks that are starting to surface, the screenshots people are circulating in private group chats, and the insider whispers hinting that the situation is about to turn even darker, I want to hear from you. What theory feels closest to the truth? Which timeline makes sense to you? Whose silence speaks the loudest? Drop your thoughts, your predictions, your breakdowns, your wildest theories in the comments below, because trust me, the next part is going to unravel everything you think you understand about this story. And when that moment hits, you'll want to be here for it. Stay locked in because next part is coming and it won't hold back.